welcome back to another episode of SEO on Air. I'm your host, Aaron, and today we have David Palombo, President and COO of Launch That. We talk about how SEO has evolved over time, what the future holds for link building, and the developments in AI and marketing. I hope you enjoy this episode. In the past 10 years, we've seen so much change with mobile phones like BlackBerry and Apple, but how much has really SEO changed in that time?
So I think that there's two ways to approach how SEO has changed over the last decade and really even longer. I mean, I think SEO has its foundation uh, largely in an area where people felt very smart people felt they could game the system, right? There were algorithms that were developed, and um, earlier on, they were pretty simple. And I think a lot of people were able to game the system and find opportunities in generating more traffic, better rankings by essentially exploiting the algorithm. And I think that that's become harder over the last 10 years. And I don't think that that's the primary way that people approach it, SEO now. But if you do look at it from that approach, I mean, there was a huge revolution with the Panda algorithm, um, with the Penguin algorithm, which well before Penguin, there were so many link spam algorithms, but even more so now. And then you have kind of this shift even more into these trust or core algorithms that look at content in a specific way. And I think each of those areas is just ways that SEO has been made harder to game by major search engines, primarily Google, which is you know the vast market share of all SEO. Um, and then I think from the other side, I think what has changed and is probably more akin to the conversation we were just having is more on the user side and user behaviors. I think user behaviors have changed quite significantly over the last 10 to 15 years. Obviously, the big transition into mobile and how that's affected user behavior and SEO. Also, how users have been more expectant of essentially like a quick answer or something that's very, very bite sized that they can just take and move on. I feel like time is such a commodity, especially for people on devices as addicting as a cell phone. And I think users have also, they are more savvy around, spam or misinformation, and so trust has become a bigger part. What I don't think has really changed, I think, from the very beginning is that standout quality content is what people want. That's what they've wanted from day one, and so
Right.
that I feel like has been evergreen.
And let's say with the standard high quality content that users are appreciating and want to kind of read, what are some, let's say, tips and tricks that you can give people who want to kind of make that kind of content in today's atmosphere full of AI and, well, generative content?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it from the perspective of how to combat AI, I mean, I think AI is going to lead to very specific use cases of potential content. I think people may use it in other avenues, and it may not be as effective, especially early on. Um, but I think if you want to create high quality content, you have to be interested. You first of all, you have to be interested in your user. You have to understand what your user wants and needs. You have to get to the point, and you have to be a clear and concise. I mean, what makes people a good writer is what makes content good. And you also want to be able to provide research. You want to be able to provide expertise. You want people to see different experiences, different points of view. Um, I think all of those things are part of quality content, um, and just content that stands out, right? I mean, if your goal is to, for example, if your goal is to inform, then you have really proper research and you show people your work, um, if you're and at the same time, I would say that entertaining people is also something that is also
Right.
involved in quality content. So I think it's a complex sort of question, but it's one of those things where you know it when you see it,
Right.
and you also it's typically created by people who have a passion for whatever they're creating.
Okay. Because I've kind of seen a few content nowadays that people believe should be good for, let's say, Google and users. But then when I read it, I'm like, wait a minute, this is probably 98% AI content. I don't think you've pretty much written anything in this. But again, I think that we can pretty much get to how AI is changing things a little bit into the conversation later. But one thing I think I kind of skipped out on was pretty much why are we asking you these questions? You've got a bunch of experience in digital marketing SEO. But for our viewers and listeners, we want to really know what were you doing before actually getting into SEO, and how did you
Yeah.
actually get into this field and get the experience you have today?
Yeah, so I was studying mathematics, and I also was. I had a group of friends, and they joined a small startup in downtown Orlando, and I joined that startup, and not really knowing what they did, and essentially I started working what I came to understand was link building. Not something I knew anything about, but I absolutely loved it from day one. And this was 15 years ago. I was one of the first employees at the startup. And over the next 15 years, we grew to about 100 people. And 4 years ago, I became the president and COO of Launch That, which is what that company became. So it has been my journey of learning SEO has all been in one place, but from multiple different verticals, multiple different brands. Uh, we are a very, very innovative, forward looking, uh, vast company in terms of the different things that we tackle. So, different points of view, and been involved in different businesses over the last 15 years, all related to SEO in some way or another.
And before I get more into the other, let's say, link building and SEO questions, could you tell us a little bit about Launch That?
Yeah, Launch That. We own and operate brands in primarily the legal and financial spaces. Our key area of expertise is in a very, very competitive vertical in SEO, which is asbestos and mesothelioma. And so we own and operate asbestos.com and various other brands in the legal and financial spaces. And we partner with financial institutions, law firms, and we connect people to extraordinary resources that they need.
Okay. And some of the questions that I have are link building related. So, does LaunchNet kind of have link building as a core competency, or is it just one of the services provided?
Yeah, I mean, I would almost describe it as the core competency of the organization. I think we've developed so many other competencies over time, but the company started out, it was only link builders.
Right.
And I think that there is a huge foundation of link building knowledge within the company. Just a deep, deep understanding of its value and how to do it the correct way. And so that has, and it still exists even to this day. And only recently have we started to actually start providing those services externally to enterprise clients. It's not a main part of our business, but it is something that we are starting to do.
What exactly would be the standard link building process? And what are some common mistakes a beginner can probably run into?
Well, it depends what you're working on. I think that there. link building, carries so many aspects now. But if you're doing some aspect of link building, you're probably got to start from some level of prospecting, which is
Right.
understanding who you want to reach out to and developing angles or content to start a conversation with that website owner, or that business or that organization, and give them a reason to link to you. And I think that there are obviously different strategies and tactics that are involved, really depending on what your angle is, what kind of sites you're targeting, what kind of information you want to get out there, and so that's its own big topic. But I think you would always start from a prospecting standpoint, which is trying to understand where are you trying to generate links from, and what value can you provide to them.
And if I'm trying to do this, what are some, let's say, tips and tricks I can do to kind of get around those issues?
A big part of link building is having something worth linking to. So you have to have that first. Once you have developed that, which is really the main part of the job, you the prospecting side of it, there are many ways to find organizations or sites quickly through search. I mean, through search operators. You can also do competitive analysis. You can go through people's backlink profiles through very popular tools out there, whether it's Ahrefs or SEMrush, or I don't know if people still use Moz, or whatever people want to use to find how their competitors are getting links to. And then developing a comprehensive list of targets in terms of who you want to reach out to, and knowing the angle that you are trying to reach out to them from. So creating different, what I would call sort of like templates or angles, and testing them out and trying to understand, how do you actually get a positive response from somebody. And I think all of those aspects are huge aspects of how you would build links. And I apologize if I'm speaking pretty broadly from it, because I haven't done it myself in about 13 years. But I did do it for a long time, and I've managed teams that still do it to this day.
Right. Yeah, I think the process kind of still remains the same. There's not much that's changed, maybe, I think, besides the updates.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one thing that I kind of found while researching was that I think Launchstat has like a point system when finding good backlinks and building links. So could you give
Yeah.
a little bit of what exactly is this point system and how it works out?
Yeah. I mean, I think the point system's been involved, has been a part of link building for us since inception. And I think it started uh, in the mid to late 2000s. And I think a big influence on it was Bill Slosky's patent on Reasonable Surfer, which talks about how a search engine could value different links in a different way. And essentially, what it kind of provides context for, not all links being equal, right? There are links that are either more prominent on a page, or are within content, or are further up on a page, or are, um, how they're presented, how relevant that link is to the content around it. And there are a multitude of factors that come into play that influence how we value a link. And another way that we value links is if we get our actual link to the target of what we're trying to link to. So, you may get a brand link, and that may be a great link to get, but you may also be trying to produce links for a very specific topic that you're currently monetizing, or you're currently trying to create awareness for. And those areas, creating links to that type of content, what we would call sort of target pages, also gets increased points. So you take all those factors into consideration and you create a point system, and link builders get different points depending on the links that they get. So it's not just a raw number of links that you create, it's also how valuable those links are. And I mean, even in the past, this is not true today, but 10, 15 years ago, PageRank was a much more prominent factor in SEO. And so PageRank played a role in the point system. Today, you may have more trusted seed net type of sites playing a role in the point system. For example, if you're trying to generate links on government websites or EDUs or universities or prominent news organizations. And so those can all have, bonus points attached to them too. So the goal is to actually create a system where not all the links are created equal, that the quality links get
Make
more
the
points for the
difference.
link builder.
Quick question, but like, how long did it take to develop this kind of point system?
I think it was ever changing. And so I think that it's never been something where we've said, hey, this is set in stone. We've updated it over the years. But I think, it was not something that took a lot of time. More so the refinement mattered, right? If you
Right.
started to create a system that really sort of swung the pendulum in one way to create a bunch of unnatural links or only links of one particular type, then you created a system that was likely not going to
Right.
help a site. So you had to keep sort of a holistic point of view to make sure that point system was creating sort of that link diversity and that link quality that you needed for your site.
And in today's atmosphere, 2023, with not many people kind of looking at link building the same way that we do, what kind of refinements can be made to that point strategy? Or have the refinements already been made?
I think some of the refinements are related to really relevance, and how relevant links are, and also probably speaking more towards how you could develop sort of an idea around a trusted seed set or some sort of domain authority metric that can come into play. I think that those aspects definitely exist. And the point system is also a good evaluation of not just, hey, here's a link builder, they generate these links, but also to evaluate, well, how well are your strategies in content marketing doing? How well are your strategies in, digital PR or more passive link building types of strategies? That kind of gives you an idea of how those things are performing too, because I think
Right.
as you start, um, I don't think that any one brand can exist under sort of, especially in today's complexity, and within SEO, with just, hey, you have link builders, they go and they fetch links for you, and that's how you power your entire brand through
Right.
SEO. That's not, I think, a successful strategy.
Yeah, it might be a quick win for a short time, but I think if you've worked in SEO long enough, you know that there's no such thing as quick wins that are good enough.
Yep.
It's pretty much your 6 months, and then we'll talk about like results.
Yes.
But we've spoken about, let's say, the past of link building, the current status of how it is now. Where do you see link building going in the future?
For many years now, I think that there have been prominent figures within SEO who felt that links were going to go away as a major ranking factor. And I have been very skeptical of that in the short term. In the long term, I suspect, I think the crazy thing about all predictions is, yeah, over any, elongated uh, period of time, everything happens. So, of
Right.
course, yeah. But, if you're looking at the next 5 to 10 years, I'm not sure that links will diminish too much as a ranking factor. A large part of that is, I think, related to the fact that search engines have developed so much infrastructure around links. And even though links were the original gamed system by SEOs, all the other systems that they could potentially attach some level of trust and value to are likely to be gamed at an easier level than links. I think links actually are kind of tough to game
Right.
once you understand how to spot the shitty ones. And so once you have the system that kind of shows you, hey, these links aren't any good. It's really hard to game generating a link. I mean, it's not an easy thing to um, to in some ways it's self-regulating. So I suspect that links will still be a major factor within SEO for the foreseeable future. And as search engines get even more sophisticated, I think that there's a chance where that role diminishes. But as that role diminishes, I think that the brands that have used links to power their brands will have the resources and the users to actually invest in those other areas and
Right.
grow those areas out. So I think it's still very important to, if you are an SEO and if you are a web owner, to be focused on links.
Yeah, and if you do come across a few, let's say, link building activities that you are finding too troublesome to take on your own, you can always reach out to Stand Ventures or Launch That, and we'll pretty much take care of it for you.
That is true too.
Most more subtle promotion for us. But you've kind of had a good history with link building itself from quite a few years back as well, and now you're in a completely different position. To those who are, let's say, in the starting position where you were before, link builders and other digital marketers, what kind of words of wisdom can you give them to kind of motivate them to keep going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's always an interesting question for me because I think link building is it's a grindy job. You know, once you've been in it 1, 2, 3 years, you know, it can be repetitive. But I mean, I guess I will just speak from my own experience. I had a huge passion for it, and I still do. You know, there's an aspect of it that I look on it very, very fondly. I loved being able to generate many links. I loved the competitive nature of the job. I loved the aspect that there was points, like there was a way to win, and that was a huge motivating factor for me. And I think the biggest challenge was moving from a doer to more of a manager or leader. And that was a big transition, and no longer being responsible for your own output, but being responsible for a team's output. And that transition comes with a lot of self realization in terms of what value you can provide to an organization or to others in your job, really changes. And you have to be much more focused on, you know, teaching and vision and relationships, and holding people accountable and growing people. Those are all skills that are much different than being really good at search operators and finding relevant websites and generating a bunch of
Right.
really good links. So the transition can be drastic. Um, uh, but the drive was still there. And I think that, you know, the big thing that was that I liked the job of doing link building, and that actually helped me communicate with link builders. And I also liked the job of managing link builders and then managing teams. And eventually, really, the transition of the responsibility of not just leading teams, but the responsibility of a culture or of an environment, and
Right.
leading a
Right.
company, leading an organization. And that is another large shift in how you see yourself and what you need to be doing on a day-to-day basis. So I think the challenges of going from doer and link builder to running teams to the responsibility of a culture and event growing leaders, those are three major transitions with all their respective challenges.
And in that time, while transitioning from link builder to kind of managing people, could you remember or recall a time where you kind of went through a big struggle and then how your managerial experience kind of helped you out?
I think the largest struggles early on were in managing uh, underperformers, really managing teams, right? I think that some of the self realizations that I've had over time is uh, one, not to spend an inordinate amount of time on underperformance. To It's actually more important to be spending time with the very good performers. And
Okay.
I think early managers may find that counterintuitive, but it's so important, and it's a hard learned lesson from the standpoint of when you're early on in management, you're thinking, well, I can get everybody up to this level and everything will be great. And I think quickly what you may realize, or I realized, was um, uh, there's always going to be sort of a somewhat of a hierarchy of there's some people who are overperforming, some people are kind of in the middle of the pack, some people are lower performers, and it is not a great use of your time to be spending all of your time with the underperformers. That actually that overperformer is more likely to generate 10, 20, 30% more if you work more closely with them, which will totally compensate for anything that the underperformer would potentially do. And I think that that's a lesson in management across the board of you want to be spending time with your best people, and eventually getting to a place where everybody's your best people. But it is something that is a huge part of management, and was an early struggle.
During your time in management, have you found any kind of situations where you had to kind of let them do it on their own or empower
Y-
them to do the work
yes,
all the
so
time?
many. I mean, because I mean, we were a small startup. I was a young manager. I've been a manager now for 13 years. Uh, at every level, this has been something that is just a constant. Because in any organization that's growing, you're the complexity of the work, the quality of the work, the amount of people, all that is growing too, and you have to rely on smart people. And so that has been a huge part of all growth. And so I think that when it comes to empowering people, um, there are ways to kind of take steps to delegation, right? There is a famous Harvard Review thing from like the 70s or 80s, which talks about monkeys and people who throw the monkey to somebody else and they have to take the responsibility and all that. But essentially, you want to get people to the place where they can make a decision and feel confident about it and report it to you.
Obviously, with great leadership and great kind of motivation for your employees, you were able to kind of reach new heights with Launch That. One of them was that you were able to kind of reach 86 million in growth for an agency as well. So I'm trying to maybe get a quick summary of how that happened and what exactly was the results.
Yeah, I think you're referencing a podcast I did with Ross Hudgens, which I will recommend. Ross has a great feed. He talks to so many SEOs himself. He's very good. But it's 86 million in traffic value, organic traffic value, according to Ahrefs. And that number, it fluctuates. Ahrefs always updates their numbers, but it's around that. for our brands. And I mean, I think, how did we achieve that? I mean, we're in competitive verticals where clicks are very, very valuable. Users are super valuable. We focused on creating very high quality content in your money, your life spaces. We simplified the complex. Legal issues, financial issues are complicated by nature. The professionals in those industries sell complicated products, or they have complicated things like lawsuits. And you want to be able to simplify that for a user, because users are typically scared in those scenarios. And if not scared, they don't know where to go. The goal is to create content that empowers them, that makes them, uh, more informed, that helps them make a decision, and connects them to experts, and is created with care, fostering communities. All of those things are part of what has helped us reach that point. I mean, we have the foundational SEO pieces that are a huge part of what we do. And I think it's um, uh, a large foundation of our success. And the other huge part is our content and our service to users, and the feedback that we receive from them, and how we generate high quality content in these difficult areas, I think, is a huge part of our success.
What are some, let's say, simple tips to constantly and consistently deliver good content?
Knowing your user, you have to know what situation they're in, or what's the context that they're reaching you within. I think that that's a, a huge part of this. I mean, in our areas of creating content, research is a huge part of it, because these are complex topics, and so you have to get it right. You have to really understand the context of your information, simplifying it, right? Making it very readable, understandable, very easy to digest. I think that is a huge part of creating quality content, and having a unique sort of angle, or empathy or care for the user is also a major aspect to creating quality content uh, at least in our specific areas of content creation.
What would be, let's say, three books and podcasts that you would recommend our viewers and listeners? Doesn't really have to be books or podcasts. It could also be personality or websites and resources.
Yeah. So I really like Bob Iger's book. Bob Iger is the CEO of Disney,
Disney.
and he wrote a book called The Ride of a Lifetime. Really shows off his ambition, how he thinks about strategy, and how he set up Disney for success over the last 20 years. So I really like that one. A culture book, business book that I really enjoy was The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni, which goes into the cultures of really successful teams. Really enjoy that one. I'm currently reading a book, and the title is so vain, but I do enjoy it. It's called "I Will Teach You to Be Rich" by Ramit Sethi. I think he has a special on Netflix, and I'm really enjoying that one from kind of a personal finance perspective. Um,
Right.
from a podcast standpoint, I don't listen to too many podcasts, but Ross Hudgens does have a feed where he interviews other SEOs that's very good. If you're interested in EAT, and more recently AI, and how that's affecting SEO, I think Marie Haynes has a great newsletter, and she also has a podcast feed that's very good. Um, uh, the SEO on Air podcast feed
We
here.
made it. Yes. Thank
That's a
you.
good one. And I think just for consuming SEO information, uh, Search Engine Roundtable, SE Roundtable, Barry Schwartz's blog that he's been running from, I don't know, I feel like since day one of
Forever.
the internet.
Yeah.
And he writes 5 blog posts with like 3 paragraphs every day. Is probably the easiest way to keep up with SEO till the end of time.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you're a diehard SEO, that is an incredible resource.
Um, where do you see AI playing a role, and how exactly does AI help out in those fields?
I think first of all, I think AI is it's early, so I think that the use cases are still emerging. Um, but I think that there are aspects of it where it is likely to provide some sort of disruption in multiple fields. And I don't, I believe that the most concerning areas of AI infiltrating SEO are likely more content related. I think that people who are um, people who are relying on it to create content at scale, or are going to use it in that sort of way, I think that that will be a very spammy way to use AI, and it will be a difficult lesson that some SEOs will learn. But I think that there still could be that there will be content applications, but that they will be specific, and that they will be areas where AI really helps create quality content, not spin out articles from a specific point of view with a fake author and all of that. I don't suspect that that's going to be very effective. Um, I do believe that it will provide a lot of innovations in coding. I believe that coding will be more simplified in the future because of the use of AI, that it will be leveraged to create aspects of websites in a more efficient, quick manner. I also believe that it will make an impact on how brands advertise and how ads are created. Um, and that there will be sort of a process where many, many different options can either be tested or can be seen from an oversight perspective, and kind of, sort of, you will get template options very quickly based on what your brand is and what you're providing. I think that there will be AI chatbots for brands that people will be able to interface with. And that will be another way that users can contact with you in a very, very, low uh, resistance manner. So I think that there are many aspects where AI is going to really change how people interact with websites, how SEO is done. But I would caution people to use it in such a way where they feel like it can save them time through absolutely everything. That there are aspects of it that it will create things that are potentially harmful over time, um, not just in the eyes of search engines, but in the eyes of users too. So I think that the transition will be one with some. Uh, there will be stories of people who use it in a way that they shouldn't have, and there will also be stories where it's leveraged very, very effectively.
It was great chatting with you. I actually enjoyed a lot of it because you kind of put it into bite-sized pieces, and I kind of learned as much as I could without, I think, annoying you too much with some questions. But it was great. Thank you so much for the chat.
It was not annoying. It was great. Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks for watching that episode. I hope you enjoyed. For more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe.